Communications. So we do have an organization right before, so it's going to be a little bit of time, but hopefully we'll get you out here as soon as possible.
Are you making a decision? I just have to ask. Yeah. It's got a loft in it, so it's whatever they do. Ella says it's over there. When I go, sometimes I go that way, with Rob. Here's me. I decided I didn't want to talk that.
Never had that. Just a day.
I do my best.
Well, it's, yeah, you got it. Yeah. Oh, that was really, yeah, that, might as well just take that down.
We talked about workload, it says one parent says.
As a reminder.
One says it's not possible that two of full rest. Oh, yes, exactly. Good meeting, guys.
Well, good evening and welcome to the January 10th organizational meeting of the Granville School District Board of Education. If you could all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Roll, roll please. Here.
Here. Mr. Wolf.
Here.
Ms. Shaw. Here. Ms. O'Day. Here.
Thank you. Want me to introduce this? Yep. All right, very good. The first item on the agenda is election of a board president for 2022. And any board member may be nominated. A second is not necessary. Is there anyone who would like to make a nomination for board president?
I'd like to nominate Thomas Miller for board president.
I do ask now if there are any additional nominations. Is that right?
Yeah.
Any additional nominations for board president? Very good. Can we please take the roll to approve this slate of electors for the role? Is that the way it works?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye.
Ms. Shaw. Aye. Ms. O'Day. Aye. Ms. Deeds. Aye. Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Now we move to the election.
The nominations are closed, and now we move to the election. Any questions or comments? Very good.
So we need a motion to approve Thomas Miller as president for 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye.
Ms. O'Day. Aye. Ms. Shaw. Aye. Ms. Deeds. Aye. Mr. Miller.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is nominations for the role of vice president. Is there anyone who'd like to make a nomination for the role of vice president for the Granville School Board?
I'd like to nominate Fred Wolf.
That's second?
Second.
No, second.
Oh, no seconds needed for the
Yeah,
nomination.
second for the nomination.
Clarification? Are there any additional nominations for the role of vice president? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and approve that, or vote on that slate of electors.
Ms. Shaw.
Aye.
Ms. O'Day. Aye. Ms. Deeds. Aye. Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye.
Okay, nominations are closed. I have a nomination or a movement. I have a motion to vote on Fred Wolf as vice president.
So moved.
Second.
Good roll.
Ms. Deeds.
Aye.
Ms. Shaw.
Aye.
Ms. O'Day. Aye. Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye.
Congratulations. Okay. The next item is the approval of board policies and regulations that are currently in effect from 2021 to roll to 2022.
So moved.
Second.
There's no other typical comment that I need to make. Just roll it. Yeah.
Okay, roll please.
Ms. Deeds.
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. Thank you. The next item is the adoption of agenda and meeting notification procedures.
So moved. Second.
So obviously, we have an organizational meeting, we're in that right now. We have regular meetings, we have special meetings, and in some circumstances, there are emergency meetings required, but these are the notification requirements that we approve annually.
Very good. And anybody that wants to be on a notification for when notification meetings are, they can submit a note to Jeff Brown or
Janelle King.
Janelle King, our district secretary, to be put on the email list so you know when the upcoming exciting meetings are. And they should all continue to be available online as well.
That's correct.
Roll.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. The next item are the board member designee assignments. So we have multiple organizations and entities that we have people who sit on our behalf as a governance team. So Brian Costa will be in the assignment for the Granville Recreation District. Fred Wolf has already signified that he is interested in the CTAC nomination. We do not have a Granville Education Foundation representative. Fred has served in that capacity, so we would need to identify somebody who is willing to do that tonight. Anyone interested in Granville Education Foundation?
Does that have to be a board member?
It does.
Okay.
This is
Ex
a,
officio.
yeah, ex officio.
Foundation.
Mr. Bernath and I both sit on the board as well, but we're permanent non-voting members,
And how often does it meet?
once a month.
Once a month.
Usually, not always during the summer and things like that. It's a pretty reasonable meeting schedule, and it's a great way to stay connected with a lot of people that are in touch with the schools, to be aware of the grants that are happening and so forth. So it's a great organization that I've been a member of for this role before, Amy, I believe you have as well. And so if you're interested, we'd love to have somebody step up to that.
Usually meet, I think Thursday nights at 7. And it's probably about an hour.
I can do it for this year.
Okay. Thank you, Cecile.
You really enjoy it. It's a great
You
group
will.
of people that are really dedicated to the school.
And if you're not able to make it, we still have representation for the governance.
Yeah, it's not.
We have Scott Mortimer, who is our representative for the Granville Community Foundation. He is continuing in his term. Brittany serves in several capacities as the Lincoln County Tax Incentive Review Committee, Newark Granville Community Authority, who met earlier and had their organizational meeting tonight, and the Granville Chamber of Commerce. So she serves in those capacities. Jeremy Young has agreed to continue in his role for Granville Village Planning Commission, which is also an ex officio committee. And then I serve also on the Granville Chamber of Commerce, Regional Advisory Council, and Legislative Liaison. So that is the slate of board member designees for 2022.
You need a motion?
Yes,
So moved. Second.
thank you.
Call roll.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. Now, as you can see, the superintendent committees, of which we have 6, are all blank for right now. This is your opportunity to kind of signal what you would be interested in participating in. You can serve in several if you're interested. The only requirement is we can't have 3 because 3 of you cannot be together and that would be a violation of sunshine law. So, Mr. Miller, not sure how you want to go about getting people's interest, but
I mean, first say that I would love to be on all of them. Time prohibits that and things like that. In the past, I've been consistently on the finance committee, which I would love to continue to do. I've also been on the operations and research committee, which is great, but I would love to change or do something different. So I'd rather hear from other board members what their passions are, because I would be happy to fill in on anyone.
I'd like to stay on the whole child committee, please.
I would like to be on whole child and diversity, equity, and inclusion committee.
Great.
and you don't have to change. if you were on
Yeah,
a committee.
yeah. Any other inclinations?
I'd like to do finance and community, if that's okay.
Great.
And how often does the Operations and Resource Committee meet?
That actually probably meets the least, it's quarterly, if not
I would say 2 or 3 times a year.
2 or 3 times.
And they're by Zoom.
And I'm not offended that nobody's really.
I'm excited about doing
I would like a couple more. No offense taken.
Great stuff.
No, yeah, I think I'd like to shift around. I think I would like to be on the Operations and Resources Committee just to learn a little bit more in that area.
Okay, and are you still interested in serving on the DEI committee?
I think I was on DEI in world class. Is that?
Either one.
Currently, nobody's on world class education committee.
Right.
I've been on that in the past, and I would love to rejoin. Yeah, because that's a great.
Then I'll stick with the DEI committee, please, on the Operations and Resources.
Excellent. All right. Then is anyone else interested?
Yeah, I have a question about the world class education committee. Can you tell me what the time commitment is on that? Is it once a month meeting and then?
So, pre-COVID, yes. In COVID, we've met less often, so it's really more related to bigger policy decisions and curriculum adoptions, which we haven't had a major one in 2 years. So I would say it's probably more quarterly versus monthly.
I would like to join that, please.
World class. Okay.
You want to read through the slate just a little bit as you saw it? To make the, you want to read through the kind of notes
Yes,
that you saw?
so,
just to make sure-
Whole Child is Amy Deeds and Rana. World Class Education is Thomas and Rana. Operations and Resources is Cecile. Finance is Fred. Community is Fred. And Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee is Rana and Cecile.
And I would like to continue on the Finance Committee
Okay.
and the Operations and Resource Committee. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Great. I think we have a full slate, and the committee, the community committee operates probably the least frequently because typically that's only when we're doing a community survey and we look at the results of the community survey, so I think that's important. So thank you for serving there as well.
And these have been somewhat flexible in the past. If there's a board member that can't attend, and
Yep.
somebody else is particularly interested in the agenda, can switch back and forth. It's just nice to have coverage of these, and there's great commitment from our community. Any community member that's interested in any one of these committees, I invite you to reach out again to Janelle or Jeff Brown, and because we have great things that happen in these committees, it's a good way to understand better what's happening in the district at all different levels. So feel free to join if there's something that's interesting to you.
Thank you.
You can call the roll now.
We did a motion.
Oh, all right.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Next item is board member compensation. So the rate is $50 per meeting. That has been in place since January of 2016.
Motion?
Second?
No? Anybody with someone?
Oh, so moved.
So move, in a second? All right.
Excellent.
I'll just mention here publicly that I would like to refuse compensation for my role as a Board of Education member. That's something I've done for the last 10 years. I think those funds are best spent well by the district on the kids themselves, and I'm not in it for the money. I understand it and respect the fact that the district can pay us for that, but that's not something that I'm open to right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Next item is the resolution to create a service fund for the organization. That service fund pays the expenses of board members during their official duties in attendance of meetings outside of the school district and inside. So,
Second.
Roll.
Next item is resolution to establish board meeting times, dates, and locations. You can see the original list here for our regular meetings for the rest of the year. And if there is a change to that list, then the public will be notified 2 weeks prior.
So moved. Second.
Questions? Dates? Somewhat flexible as need be and so forth, but good. Roll.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
The next item is more of a consent item because it includes authorizations for the calendar year 13A through I, J, K, L. So these include my ability to hire and fire in between board meetings, Brittany's ability to pay bills, payroll, investments. So it's basically the general authorizations to the superintendent and the treasurer to operate the school district outside of board meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? There's a good long list of things that save us a lot of time, and we put the trust in you to make those things happen.
These have not changed for this year.
Okay? The roll.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. Do I have a motion to adjourn just the organizational meeting part of this evening?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. Meeting adjourned. But not quite done yet. Okay. Next page. I'd like to call to order the January meeting of the Granville School District Board of Education. Please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now down to the real business.
Mr. President, if you would, may I say a word?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I'd like to welcome our newly elected board members, Thomas Miller as president and Ron O'Day as a board member, to your first meeting and to your lot of meetings. So we appreciate your service to the community and thank you for running a great election again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody here joining us in person as well as online. Your involvement is really important, and we're looking forward to your feedback and for your participation. Would you call roll?
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Ms. Deeds?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Ms. Shaw?
Here.
Ms. O'Day?
Here.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any changes? It's all good?
It's all good.
All right, the vote?
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. Okay, accommodations.
Yes. The reason why most of you are here tonight. So our first commendation is a Granville High School senior student, Isaac Lowry, who submitted a paper which has been nominated by Pioneer Academics as one of 118 papers authored by scholars from the 2021 program for publication in the Pioneer Research Journal, an annual publication showcasing the most outstanding undergraduate level research and writings generated by high school students from 48 countries and regions who participated in this year's program. The scholars whose work has been nominated hail from 5 continents, 13 countries and regions, and 104 high schools. The nominated research papers presented original research in a wide range of academic fields spanning STEM, social sciences, humanities, and pre-professional disciplines. All the research papers completed by Pioneer scholars undergo rigorous academic oversight, each one representing significant achievement in the original exploration and discovery and held to the highest academic standards. The 118 papers nominated for this edition of the 2021 Pioneer Journal, which marks the 8th volume, comprise the top 10% of papers produced by the Pioneer program spring and summer terms. The nominated papers will now be evaluated in a comprehensive review process, which includes double-blind review by a panel of more than 40 university faculty experts and leading universities and colleges. Isaac, we could not be more proud of you and your research, and we look forward to great things in the future. The world needs people like you who are willing to do this work. I'm going to not muddy what you did. I'm actually going to let you explain it at some level, because I don't understand what you did. So come on up and explain a little bit about what you did, and congratulations for the The floor is yours.
Okay, so I won't go into too much detail, but so I worked with Professor Veselik at Notre Dame University to conduct biological research. I did not actually conduct laboratory research, but I created a proposal for a study that could be conducted in a laboratory, and it would involve using CHO cells, which are Chinese hamster ovarian cells, to create recombinant enzymes in suspension. And those could then be used to treat a disorder. They could actually treat any disorder, but specifically I looked at congenital adrenal hyperplasia, which is a disorder that is a single enzyme that's missing. And if that enzyme was infused intravenously, then that could solve a lot of problems. And it's would potentially be a markedly better way to treat the disorder. So my paper did end up getting selected as one of the 27 papers, I believe, that are going to be in the Pioneer Journal. So I'd like to thank Mrs. McDonald for being a big supporter of mine for the past several years. I think I've had you 3 years now. And I'd also like to thank the science department at Granville High School for being amazing supporters as well, especially the biology department at Granville really inspired me to do this on my own, but I definitely had their backing and stuff, and all the teachers at Granville are amazing for kind of inspiring this inquiry and personal academic venture. So,
Congratulations. Yes, we're going to get a picture. Come on up. No, I was just trying to process what he just described. And so I'm so glad that you did that. And now, Tanya, you want to get a picture? Congratulations. Seriously, that's a really cool one. All right, thank you. You're actually going to like this next connection that I'm going to make, because I think it speaks to a lot of what you just demonstrated as a potential graduate, soon-to-be graduate of Granville Schools, but also, demonstrating a lot of our portrait of a graduate competencies that we identify. But this month is also School Board Recognition Month. So the Ohio School Boards Association is celebrating Ohio School Boards Recognition Month during January to build awareness and understanding of the vital role that an elected board member plays in our society. The Granville Exempted Village Board of Education, like school boards across our state and country, provide critical leadership to our students, staff, and community. Our school board sets the direction for our public schools by envisioning the community's educational future. It sets policies and procedures to govern all aspects of the school district operation, and the school board keeps attention focused on progress towards the school and community goals, maintaining two-way communication with all segments of our community. On behalf of the students and staff of Granville Exempted Village Schools, we wish to thank each board member for your service and commitment to our schools. On behalf of the schools, we have purchased you a gift, the Self-Driven Child. So it actually was quite evident that Isaac is quite self-driven and has been able to take all the things that have been a part of his education and apply it to something that he is obviously passionate about. And this book and its authors have partnered with the school district in the past and are going to in the future in talking about giving students more autonomy and space to really actually pursue things that are of interest to them and apply the content knowledge that they acquire in Granville schools. But really, it's all the competencies that they have. So I am going to pass out the certificates of appreciation from OSBA and then also give you your self-driven child book. And I always write in them, but don't look or compare because it says the same thing. There will be a test on Monday. Just kidding. But I am always interested in book talks. So if you're...
Is the staff reading this as well, or are you with your administration team?
We will be, yes. They now know that they are.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's give them one more round of applause. All right, next I get to honor our district nurses, clinic aides, office aides, and building secretaries. So the last 2 years of managing a pandemic have challenged the organization and stressed it in many ways that we really never could have ever comprehended. But our staff tonight that we're commending really have done an amazing job of taking the necessary flexibility and making it a part of their daily routine. So, especially when managing COVID and contact tracing. So those guidelines change on a regular basis, and so we speak with our district nurses and our school nurses, our clinic aides, and our secretaries all the time about all these changing parameters, and they adjust on the fly. They do it in a way that is professional and compassionate to parents and people that they are interacting with on a regular basis. I always say our staff are the directors of first impressions, and I think that came from Disney, but they truly are, and many of them do a fantastic job of interacting with our community in a way that really instills confidence in the schools. So on behalf of all the schools, I'd like to recognize all of them over there. So we have PJ Cadillac, we have Gina Burdick, Bobby Seidel, Amber Rosso, Kim Borders, Amy Petrick, Chrissy Rogerson, Kathy Frank, Kara Kramer, and Jody Overholt. Team, come on up, stand up here. Oh, look at that, I was right on. I don't ever get it all. Okay, can we get a picture with everyone?
Yeah, I can, this is good. I would say 1, 2, 3, smile. So I'm taking pictures and I don't know what you're doing with your mouth. All right, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. The other thing that I would say as they're sitting down is they don't know work hours anymore, so many of them have worked weekends, nights, in order to maintain a safe learning environment for our students. So I appreciate all of you. I know that I've texted many of you over the weekends and you respond to me immediately, and I appreciate everything that you do to support our mission of learning for life. So thank you very much. And this concludes our commendations, and don't have to stay for the rest of the
But if you want to stay for a riveting financial highlight,
Yeah, unfortunately, they are probably going to go to contact trace.
All right, December 2021 financial report. So looking at our cash balance graph, we are halfway through the fiscal year now, and comparing December's cash balance to last December, we are, and I have December 2022 compared. Okay, I'm clearly jumping ahead here, but anyways, December of 2021 compared to 2020, we're up a little over $5 million, and again, that's the phasing of the income tax as well as the carryover cash balance that we had at the end of last fiscal year. Moving on to the revenue comparison for the month of December. So we had no local tax revenue this month. State revenue is down compared to last year, and that's the funding formula change that we've talked about. Just want to mention on the state revenue piece, we did receive on last Friday our first payment under the new funding formula, which is a lot to digest. There's a whole webinar that they're doing this week to help us understand it. And what they've done is tried to catch us up from payments we should have received. So I'll have a whole synopsis of that for you next month, but we're not quite there yet. And then all other revenue, that line item is down compared to last December. And that is because, if you recall, we had several workers' comp refunds last year. So we obviously can't continue to receive those as often as we had in prior years. So that line item is down. However, looking at year-to-date revenue for local taxes, up about $747,000. We will get our next income tax payment this month. So next month we'll be able to see a better picture of income tax and kind of get that timing issue that we've been talking about out of there to have a better comparison year over year for income tax. And same issue on state revenue, the funding formula having not been fully implemented. We'll also have a timing issue again next month as they get that caught up. So we'll start to see in a couple of months truly how that's comparing. And then all of the revenue is up slightly, and that's beginning to offset. We had the return of advance, larger return of advance this year, but we didn't have the workers' comp refund, so those two items are starting to offset each other.
Can you just remind us why we don't see any local taxes coming in December?
Yes, so largely we're funded with property taxes, or that line item is largely property taxes and income tax. So property tax is paid out twice a year. We do receive advance payments on that, but we typically receive the settlement by August and then again in February and March. So in those periods in between, we won't have any revenue from property tax. Then on income tax, we receive those payments 4 times a year. So those come in January, April, July, and October. You're welcome. Okay, and then moving on to the expense side for the month of December compared to last December. Salary and benefits up just due to our base increases and steps. And then purchase service and all of their expenses are pretty close with where they were last year. Those line items tend to vary just based on timing and things like that. Looking at year-to-date though, in this yellow box, we have a couple of items that we adjust for each month. So we have the insurance issue that I talked about, seems like every month for the last 2 years, that we're adjusting for because of the software conversion. And then we're also not having those tuition charges because of the funding formula. So that changed after adjusting for those two items. Expenditures are up a little over 600,000 on the year, which is in alignment with our forecast and what we would expect to see at this point in the year.
Are there some staffing differences that might have also impacted the change there?
Yes,
Where we were a year ago?
so we had some positions added last year that we were able to utilize ESSER dollars for. We have some positions coming up that we'll be able to utilize ESSER dollars for. That does not impact here. However, one item that I will note is we finished up negotiations late last year. And so those retro payments that were due to staff were actually paid out in August on last year's contract. So what that means is a larger portion of last year's contract hit in this fiscal year. So it's actually inflating our expenses for this fiscal year compared to last. Okay, so this little graph that we've looked at, or chart rather, that we've looked at every month, I've now had to change to landscape view because we have so many different sources that you can't even read it all on one page anymore. But just a couple items I want to highlight here. So this, for those that can't see this, is really the detail behind all of our different COVID-related revenue sources. And so just since last month, we have 2 new sources of revenue. First, I want to thank Granville Township. They had some leftover funds available that they needed to spend by December 31st that they were able to provide to us. So that was about $2,500 that we were able to utilize from Granville Township. So we appreciate their support and partnership for those funds. And then thanks to the Alliance and Jeff's work and leadership with that group, they were able to advocate to the General Assembly to utilize their allocation of ESSER dollars to provide all districts across the state with at least $1,000 per student allocation. Because the range of what districts initially received through ESSER ranged from 0 up to over $10,000 per student. So by doing this, we are actually going to receive almost $1.3 million in this, as I'm calling it, ESSER General Assembly allocation until we get a more formalized name there. But it actually exceeds what we've received in the last 2 allocations. So I'm going to show you the next page here that has a graph that kind of sums it up pretty well. So this shows us the total height of each bar is our total allocation from each of these sources. The blue is what we've already spent, and then the orange is kind of our remaining balance. So you can see that that far exceeds what we've received in previous rounds of the ESSER allocations. So we don't have the formal application for those funds yet, but we anticipate they will have similar requirements, must be related to COVID. We can't just spend it on anything, we can't just spend it on salary benefits for staff. There will be certain restrictions. So we will be meeting and working collaboratively to come up with a budget for those dollars over the next month. And hopefully we'll have something to present to the board.
So those are not, you're not able to spend those?
We don't have,
Even new staff, I thought?
yeah, so I should say, it would have to be specific staffing requirements. So it's not like we could just give everybody a raise with those funds.
Right.
But yes, we can hire, specifically, there will likely be a learning loss
That's exactly what I said.
intervention
Okay.
requirement, as there was with the last round, a 20% set aside for that. So yes, we could use that to add staff specifically for that purpose.
And then that 20% that you just mentioned, is that something that Granville has decided, or is that, will that be part of the requirements of the
Yes,
funds?
that will be part of the federal requirements
Got
for
it.
these
Okay.
funds.
Yes.
As I think about the expense that we have and the time that we spend on coaching, it's just an enormous number of hours per week, right? And it's sort of everybody. Like a lot of people that were in the room here tonight that were commended, like are spending an enormous number of hours. Is there a way to reallocate or readjust their job descriptions to be more appropriately focused on the things that they actually do, which is things like contract tracing and so forth, and be able to utilize funds to support some of the staff that we do have that are working on that specifically? I don't know
I think
what
that,
flexibility there is there, but like, just think about the number of hours we spend, like every classroom teacher, would take in attendance, and every administrator, and every secretary, you
the
know?
one thing that gets hard about that is like when you start split funding people partially out of federal funds and partially out of other sources,
Yeah.
there's what's called time and effort, and they have to document how much time they're spending, which
Yeah.
I'm afraid would take more time than what portion of their job could actually be specifically tied to this. So if we could identify like one whole person that we could fund out of these dollars, I think that makes sense. But yeah, if you start saying like 10% of this person's job is funded out of this portion, that gets just messy from a record keeping standpoint.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we will have plenty of expenses that are
We do.
allocated.
Yeah.
We have plenty.
Thank you.
The next graph, this is just how we have allocated across all services, the different expense categories. That has not changed since last month, since we don't have those new sources specifically budgeted yet. That will be hopefully updated next month. And then we have our cash reconciliation for purposes. Any other questions or comments on the financial report?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next staff report. Mike? Is just a first reading of the board policy. We only have two. There are two policies that are going to need updating. The first one is IKF, the graduation requirements. The General Assembly added a requirement for financial literacy. We already have a financial literacy course that we have required, so we even though the General Assembly is now requiring it, we've been doing that for about 4 years. So, but our policy doesn't necessarily specifically state it in the way that the General Assembly asks for it to be included into the graduation requirements. So we're updating that policy on graduation requirements. The other issue is related to our public participation. So in a recent case in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, as part of that appeal process, it modified what public participation can be limited for. So if you actually look at our board policy or our agenda at the back, it talks about our public policy or public comment policy. And in section G, if you look at it, it says the presiding officer may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. This court case has removed the ability to stop public comment if it is personally directed, abusive, or irrelevant. So that will need to be modified to be too lengthy or obscene. So that is going to be something that we adjust in our communication, and we'll adjust on this once it's approved at the following meeting. So the case that determined that is the Ison case versus Madison School District, which is up in the Cleveland area. But it was adjudicated in July, and so this is now the rule of law, and we must comply. So we are going to adjust accordingly. Now, that being said, I want to say that our community has always been very respectful. They've articulated cogent public comment, and they have always been very respectful and modeled civility as a way to model that behavior for our students. So obviously we don't have to worry about that very often, but it is something that I think is important. In the past, what has happened is if something is personally directed, the presiding officer has paused and said, would you like to move into executive session? And that is allowable, but if the participant doesn't wish to go into executive session, they can continue as long as they don't meet that criteria. It is now called the point of view ruling, so we cannot do anything that would be construed as limiting a person's point of view. So, any questions about that?
I think it'd be great to continue that process. I mean, public comment is fantastic and welcome and things like that. But there's occasions where it's just outside of our scope a little bit, right? And to help people advocate appropriately for their kids and their causes and things like that, I think takes some explanation. Not that we want to shut down any public comment, but that we want to have it appropriately directed and accepted and welcomed in a way that it can be functional. And if an executive session is a great way to do that, that people feel more comfortable with, I'd like to offer that, but not constrain them by that necessarily. So I hope we can continue that role of civility that we've always had. And public comment, whether it be standing at the podium or sending us emails or sending an email to the superintendent who can read it at the meetings is always important as well.
So, can we just clarify, an executive session would mean, can you explain what an executive session
Yes,
looks like?
so what we can do is we can pause the meeting and move into executive session. So if we would take a moment to move into executive session, and we would invite that person upstairs to a separate meeting location. They would be able to articulate their perspective in a closed door environment, and then come back out of executive session once they're finished and resume the regular Board of Education meeting.
It's also possible to invite them to the executive session that might be either following the meeting or at a separate time, or to invite them, for example, if they might want to meet with the superintendent and one or two board members. It's possible to do that, just to give them a forum that's a little bit easier and less disruptive. And I would like to encourage, like,
Yeah, that wouldn't be public comment, but that would be something that's always available to.
Right, I think, but just reinforcing that there are lots of ways to do that communication, I think would be helpful. Right, I think it's a little disruptive to the regular meeting to immediately adjourn into executive session, but to always have that as an option if it's the most appropriate is something we can continue to offer.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. That will be a second reading at the next board meeting. Next is my school update. So as you are aware, or if you're not aware, yesterday we moved to implement a temporary mask mandate. So our mask status has changed. We are under a temporary mask mandate until January 21st, where we will review the local data and make adjustments as necessary. As we have throughout this entire pandemic, we have looked at our local data and made decisions based on that local data to protect the health and safety of our students and staff. We did anticipate coming off of the holidays and having some type of increase in COVID positive cases. As of right now, in the school district, it's kind of a challenge because we have had a difference in availability of medically proctored assessment or tests. So we have 21 cases that are medically confirmed, and we have another 20 that are not medically confirmed, but parents have reported to us that they have taken tests and their students have tested positive. So about 40 cases happening in the schools right now. We also have 12 staff members that are currently positive. Those are significantly higher than our average of 8 to 10 pre-holiday or pre-winter break. We also have so our total enrollment is close to 2,500 students. We had 355 students out today for a variety of different reasons, being ill, being in quarantine, or being COVID positive. So that's about 14% of our population, which is, a significant increase of illness. Therefore, it is an appropriate time frame to implement a temporary mask mandate, knowing that that does help in a variety of different ways. We are in the middle of the Omicron variant wave. I just saw a recent article right before the board meeting that said that Omicron is now the dominant variant. So it has surpassed Delta, which is actually a good thing in a lot of ways, because it is, although it's highly contagious and more virulent, it is less severe in its symptomology. So that is indicative of, us moving to a place where this can be controlled in a more manageable way without some of the layers of protection as we do for a lot of other viruses, knowing that this virus is not going to go away. Our vaccination rates continue to be high. We have received our vaccination rate for the 43023 zip code. It's close to 72%, which is very high for students ages 5 to 17. So again, that is a really positive aspect of what's happening in our community, and that's just our zip code. We do cover several zip codes, including 43055. But that is a positive indication of us having people taking the necessary steps. I don't know if I mentioned this, but this mandate is for students and staff. It is important for our staff to be able to conduct the business of educating our students, and we need them in front of our children. So as I said, we have 12 staff members, but we have multiple staff members not able to come into school on a regular basis. We were averaging last week about 40 staff members out every single day. We started this week slightly lower than that, but not much. So we are trying to do everything that we can to maintain our in-person status. And that is our clear priority. You have mentioned that and said that in every forum that I've been in, and that is the directive that we're operating from. And in order to do that, that's the direction that we're taking. So with that, any questions
Well, I have a question.
or comments?
I have a question that's a little, but no, I didn't, oh,
We can have discussion later if you want
Yeah.
to ask some questions
Yes.
about the data and things like that.
I haven't, yes.
I'd like to say, first of all, I think the message that you sent out to the community was very appropriately phrased, and I appreciate you passing that along. 40 staff members out is really hard. How is that impacting us, or what do we do from a layers of protection or a ability to educate perspective with our staff?
So Tanya has done a nice job of trying to get additional subs in our pool. So I think that's been helpful, but honestly, our teachers are adjusting and helping each other out. And so our buildings operate much like a team, and the team rallies around to make sure that the needs are met. And so people just kind of take that next person up approach and try and do what they can to fill the needs of the building that day. But it is stressing the system. And there are many nights that I question our ability to have school the next day. And that's not, that's not unfamiliar territory right now. Licking Valley has had, 3 days now that they have not been able to offer school because of illnesses amongst the staff and staff availability. So that is not out of the realm of possibility. That's why we're trying to take proactive approaches to, limit spread of all kinds of viruses right now.
Do you know what their numbers are? Like how many staff they had out before they made the decision to?
I don't know that specifically, but I can get that information from the superintendent.
Go ahead, Cynthia, please.
I do have a question. I have a question more going towards, I can't remember if outdoor recess is a state, if there's a state requirement around like how low, how cold it can be in order for kids to go outside, or if that's something that we decide. And if it's something we decide, is it possible to lower that temp just a little bit so kids can get out more, relieve a little bit of stress?
Yeah.
Also, indoor recess is definitely more
Right.
interaction,
Absolutely.
close up, so just.
Yeah, we try and get kids out, especially at the lower grades, as much as possible. So it would be very helpful for parents to send their kids bundled up and prepared to go outside. I've said this on multiple occasions. When my daughter was studying in Denmark, she said, there is no bad weather, there's just bad preparation. And, in Minnesota, our worst days are their best days. So we can adjust, and people can put more layers of protection on their kid, put thicker coats, bigger mittens, and we can send them outside. But typically, we try and, keep kids if the temperature is such where they would get frostbite within 20 to 30 minutes if they were outside exposed. So that typically is around 20 degrees or below.
Could you just talk a little bit more about kind of the decision process and what kind of happens behind the scenes? Because some people might have been surprised, some people think like it would have been late and so forth, with kind of how this rolled out. And kind of what really is happening in the schools. It's the first day we've announced it, and there's lots of logistics, I imagine, for this classroom or that classroom, or cafeterias or gym classes, and sports and so forth. So maybe just talk a little bit about the process and how we evaluate data to
Sure.
kind of give some background that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then to talk about the implementation.
So I would say, obviously we talk internally as a leadership team, all the building administration, the nurses do a fantastic job of keeping me up to date as far as, new cases coming in, what they're seeing in the population. They do a fantastic job of communicating. So working internally with our staff to assess the situations and understanding the nuances of the potential data. And then, then calibrating that with the Layton County Health Department, Chad Brown and his team. We collaborate and say, okay, this is what we're seeing, what are you seeing? And then, we kind of put that all together in the bigger picture and say, okay, this is what the step is that's necessary. And once we make a decision that a step is necessary for an increased level of protection, we kind of transition into a communication phase, and we start to communicate more broadly with, the staff first, and then the parents and the community as a whole.
Great. It would be easy if it was just like a number, like 7%. If we had 7% in the county, then we're doing this, so forth. But it's just never that easy. And there's a lot of work that goes into those decisions that I hope folks appreciate. And even, with the implementation in specific classrooms or specific circumstances, there's a lot to sort of be worked out and worked on. And I think we, have to trust all of our staff and our leadership and all of the students to kind of help us implement this in the right spirit.
Absolutely.
It's a tricky process.
Yeah, and I thank the community in advance for adjusting again. I understand that it's challenging and it requires conversations with your children that you probably don't want to have again, but we don't want to either. But in order to maintain our in-person status, we believe that this is the best process moving forward until we see, the data trending in a different direction.
And it's currently 2 weeks, but it could change any day. That's the one thing we know. Right? The layers of protection may have to go up, or they may be released, and we maybe need to reassess that 2 weeks about what that next step is. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions about the school update or the current situation, Superintendent? Very good. right, this is the point in our agenda when we welcome public comments. Anybody that would like to step at the podium and speak for up to 5 minutes, we'd love to hear you. And others that are online, please feel free and submit your comments by email prior to the board meeting. If there's any public comments, please step to the podium. Seeing none, we'll proceed. Board discussion. There's nothing specific to list on the agenda, but I think there's lots of things to chat about relative to the COVID update and the school update that Mr. Brown issued. Anyone have comments to start with?
It was very clear at my dinner table that it was Mr. Brown that wants us to wear our masks all the time. So just so you know, it's very easy for me to wear masks because it's Mr. Brown's fault.
Yes, yes. I would just affirm that you did give me the responsibility of doing that, but that's with the understanding that you did have my back and understand this was something that we're doing in the best interest of the entire community, so, yes.
Absolutely, and yeah, and to follow up on that, just in my daily work, we are covering teachers constantly, so I'm a teacher in a different district, we're covering teachers constantly, and we have a lot of teachers that are out, and I know that when we have covering and sub-plans, if teachers are sick, it's very hard for them to have great sub-plans for the kids, so basically, any way that we can keep kids in the building with their teacher that they see all day long, or even, teachers they see, I think is for the best for them and their education.
Absolutely.
And I think one thing to note is through this school year, we said at the beginning of the year, we're going to follow the numbers, but we're also going to be nimble and be able to adjust. And I think we've shown that in the past, and I'm sure we'll do that with the current situation. So I think we've, especially the administration and the schools have done a very good job of being able to adjust, and I think we will continue to do that.
Yeah. I think a good example of that, Fred, is earlier in the year we had a situation in one specific classroom and one specific grade level, and so we did a targeted 2-week mask mandate. It's so prolific right now that it was something that we needed to address at each building, and that's why we took this approach versus that approach. So I think you're right, we are following the numbers, we are looking at it, and we're making the best decisions that we can in a targeted fashion, but then there are times where it has to be widespread. Thank you.
I guess I've kind of said before, like, I don't like mandates that are enforced from us. And it's not that I don't think it's the right decision to do. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. But I kind of just wish that people would choose to do the right thing, even if they don't believe this is necessary. If there's others that are, or if there's data that shows it's necessary. I hope we're building a culture where that happens. I think everybody kind of wants easy answers to this COVID thing. It's like at first it's like, oh, just wash your hands and use sanitizer, we'll be fine. That didn't really work out, right? And then it was like, oh, we'll find the curve, and after a couple weeks we'll be fine, right? Well, that didn't quite work out, right? And it'd be nice to have just an easy way, get a vaccine, right? And that'll solve every problem, right? Like, none of those things, wear a mask, right? And then you'll be totally fine, right? And like, none of those things by themselves, right, work, right? Because it's a big, complicated problem, right? For any individual, the health is a problem, right? But when you talk about the society or a school district, right? Just a lot of complicating factors. And I think this is absolutely the right thing to do right now. It's fantastic that we have a high level of vaccination in our community. That helps a lot, right? It's great that we have a lot of compliance with our masking. That helps definitely stop the spread. And so I hope that we can continue that, but we're in a real peak. I mean, like, what is it, 5 or 10% of us right now probably have COVID, right? It's out there and it's big, and I hope it passes quickly, as some models show it would. But until then, masks will help reduce the spread. Not if it's around your chin, not if it's in your pocket, right? And not all masks are perfect, right? So I hope that we all can model the best usage that is possible, right? And continue to be as respectful as we need to be for distancing and so forth, because somehow we're going to get through this. right? And this is the right next step to take, you know. None of us like being told what to do or have mandates, but if it can help in any capacity, you know, we need to do it now. So thank you, and you definitely have my support.
Thank you.
Great. Any other general board discussion? Years, application things? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the action agenda.
The first item is 10.01, renewal of the lease agreement with the Ohio Guidestone.
So,
Okay, this is a no-cost lease agreement, but they have to license the office that they have for our mental health specialist that is that operates within our school district. And so we have to have a lease agreement approved every year for them to go to the licensing board to approve that office. So it's going to be an annual type of lease agreement that you will see moving forward.
And when you say office, you simply mean space?
It's space.
Right.
Yep, yep.
Just double checking that.
That's a great arrangement. I think it's wonderful to have in our buildings, and if this is the way that helps that happen, I'm all for it.
Yep.
Any other questions? Take the roll, please.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day? Aye. Ms. Dees? Aye. Mr. Miller?
Ah, thank you. The next item is the approval of the communication support contract.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So this is a support contract in 2018 when we had a reduction in force. We used to have a position that was dedicated to communications. After that reduction in force and we didn't have that position, we gave a small stipend to Janelle King, who is the secretary for myself and Mr. Burnett, the assistant superintendent. And obviously during COVID, there is a significant increase in the available or need for communications. And we have needed to, engage with other entities to communicate effectively. And so we're looking forward to engaging with Kane Learning to support some of our social media website. If you go to our website, there's a lot of things that we haven't been able to update because honestly, we've been dealing with, keeping school open. So they're going to help support us in that process. And they're, a very cost-effective contract. The entire contract is less than $14,000, which is excellent considering the amount of work that we will have them doing for us in the area of communication. And I think part of the thing that we are suffering from is the lack of the ability to be proactive in our communications instead of reactive, and so that this will help in that manner as well. So we seek approval for that.
So I see that it's, it's about 6 months here.
Yeah.
So does that mean they'll kind of be providing sort of a system or like a structure for us to then use going forward? Or are they going to be doing the actual social media posts and the actual?
They're going to be doing both right now. If this were a full year contract, it would be about $26,000. Lakewood utilizes them, Heath utilizes them, but we're kind of doing this short term as kind of a test to see how the consulting process works and how effective they are in meeting our needs. And then, if we were to engage in a longer term contract, like a 1 or 2 year contract, I would be bringing that back for your support.
Okay. And will they do any of the website design in terms of,
They do graphic design. A lot of what they're going to be doing is content editing from the standpoint of, dead links, other things that are on the website that are kind of old, and cleaning those up. They're going to do some, social media posts and other, stories that we would like to help get out and communicate more regularly for the community.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, so we can look at it from like this, being able to share more information with our community, which is amazing, but then as a teacher who looks, I have to look at lots of different websites, school websites for my work. I think this will also really benefit kids, because if kids come to the district or move out of the district, or if there's any communication that needs to go on between teachers in different districts, this is, it can be really challenging to find things online. So
Well, I mean, just a perfect example, we're gonna start kindergarten registration in a short period of time. It starts, I think, in February. And, our building administration are operating the buildings right now. They don't have the ability to run an enrollment process right now. It's not humanly possible. So those are things that they're gonna support in getting those communications out. Yeah.
I'm just curious about how the messaging is going to be coordinated so that it is Granville messaging.
Yeah. So a lot of the time, we have content, but we don't have the ability to shape it and actually get it written and then produced. And so teachers share great things about what's happening in their classrooms all the time. So Janelle's still going to be, kind of the point person, and then she will siphon material out to some of their team to actually then get that information out to the rest of the community. And then we have a weekly meeting with their team to make sure that, it's a Granville message, that our voice is well represented in the communication.
Voice is the word I was
Yeah.
coming up with.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And Cecile, to your comment, I mean, this used to be a Granville staff person in our administration that had this role, and we've missed that for several years. I wanted to thank Janelle for all that she's done, but all that everyone has been doing to try and step up and manage the various social media channels, and websites, and emails, and so forth. I think this is a really effective way to do this role, and I like the fact that it's a 6-month contract right now to evaluate the structure of it and see how it works for us. I know it's going to continue to be important, and it'll hopefully let some of us focus more on the things that are actually happening in the building. And Amy, to your talk, I would recommend actually engaging the community committee, right? And I know we usually just use them for surveys and things like that, but I think they can be effective as a group of parents and stakeholders, kind of be an interface or communication or work with Kane Learning a little bit, right? So, and I bet there's a lot of talented people there that have a lot to offer as well in terms of messaging. So it might be one of the first meetings to be with that superintendent committee.
Yeah.
To find a way to collaborate with them and work through that.
Great suggestion, thank you.
Very good. Anything else? Roll, please.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Ms. Ade?
Aye.
Ms. Keats?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Okay, the next is the consent agenda, 11.01A through C4.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. So we have the standard items. I'd like to highlight the fact that we offer a national board certification stipend for teachers who carried the national board certification. And so Caleb Slavinsky and Mike Bate have renewed their certifications and will receive that stipend. So congratulations to them, excuse me. And then the other thing that I point out is the marine biology stipend for the 21-22 school year for Mara Hoover and Jim Redding. This is one of those unique classes that we offer here in partnership with New Albany that would offer a trip to Andros Island for some field research. A lot of what Isaac referenced as far as the unique opportunities that we present in Granville schools are represented in opportunities like this. So we do pay a stipend because it is outside of their contractual day. And we have a couple of additional substitutes, and including Melissa Murphy, who is a former graduate. So always good to see them.
Steve Peter shines.
Yes, he is.
Oh,
Okay, great.
Yeah. Great. Any questions on consent agenda? Roll, please.
Ms. Deeds? Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye. Thank you. Finance.
Item 12.01, approval of the December 2021 financial report.
So moved.
Second. Any additional questions or comments on the financial report?
No, roll.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Item 12.02, approval of the resolution accepting amounts and rates.
So moved. Second.
This is an annual resolution certifying our tax rates for the upcoming tax year from the county auditor. So very minor changes this year. Residential tax rate has gone down slightly as values have gone up, and then vice versa on the commercial side. So you should see very small changes in your tax bill this year as far as the school portion goes. So this is just our annual requirement to accept those rates.
Thank you. The roll.
Ms. Shaw? Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Item 12.03, approval of the permanent appropriation resolution.
So
So-
moved.
Second.
The two changes for this month include the new COVID dollars. So we have the township funds, as well as the General Assembly ESSER allocation that we had not anticipated last month. So just as a reminder, every time that we receive additional funds that exceeds at the fund level what we had previously budgeted, we have to reapprove this resolution. Any
Very good.
questions? Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. O'Day?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Item 12.04, approval of cafeteria plan amendment.
So moved.
Second.
So, this has nothing to do with our cafeterias or food service. I just feel like I have to say that because that does not seem obvious, but the cafeteria plan is actually what governs our health insurance plan for the district. So this is making an adjustment for requirements or the ability for the district to provide health reimbursement accounts to employees who do not qualify for a health savings account. So in lieu of the HSA, they get an HRA, which is similar, but it's an employer-sponsored plan, so those funds stay with the district when that employee leaves service. They do not have the ability to take those funds with them. But it is a way for them to still get that contribution from the district.
Great.